Hello, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. My name is Juliana Smith, and I serve as the Deputy Athletics Director and Senior Woman Administrator at Colgate University. I'm a proud graduate of the NCAA Dr. Charles Whitcomb Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute helped me refine my gifts and develop new skills for navigating my career as a college athletics professional. I gained clarity about how I want to continue serving within college athletics, and the Leadership Institute helped me build a community of colleagues who support and challenge me through meaningful relationships. As leaders, we should accept the responsibility to continue learning, to continue growing, and to bring others along with us.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown with the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. I am joined by the Pictor Group, led by Cary Groth, co-founder and chief executive officer, former AD at Nevada, most recently, right?
Good morning.
Greetings. Thanks for having us. I'm also joined here by Carolyn Schlie Femovich. She's the vice president. And Carolyn, you were most recently executive director of the Patriot League, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Greetings. Welcome to the podcast. We also have SThe Hatfield Clubb. She is the president of the Pictor Group and most recently athletics director at Drake University for 11 years, right?
That's right. Yeah. Good morning. Good to see you.
So we have a wealth of experience here when you talk about leading in college athletics. Leadership is something I try to focus on this podcast because I think while I might not know a lot about actually being on campus or a lot about running a business, but when you talk leadership, there's commonalities across any industry and everything, right?
Absolutely.
And one thing that I believe is that when you're coming up, if you don't participate in a co-curricular activity or sport, you're not really taught leadership in classrooms. And if you don't get it at home, where are you getting this leadership? So that's why it's important. That's why I always want to talk leadership, especially with people such as yourselves who have this wealth of leadership. Now, I talked to Lynn Hickey. And Lynn Hickey, of course, director of athletics at Eastern Washington, spoke highly of this group of you ladies in terms of leadership. And I asked her what we should talk about. And she talked about values. The question I asked her is that I have a philosophy, and it reads like this: experiences establish values. Values inform decisions, and decisions dictate the adventure of life. And the thought is that a lot of people talk about their core values, but they don't necessarily tell how they came up with them. So I think if you think about some experiences in your life where a major inflection point happened, you think about what you learned from that inflection point, whether good or bad, whatever the learning lesson was from that, then that becomes the value. So now when you find yourself in a similar situation, instead of thinking about the emotion of the previous experience, you're thinking about the lesson that you learned or the value, and you can make a decision based on that. So I want to know what your thought is on that, and then we'll get into the Pictor Group and some of the work that you guys have done in college athletics. Cary, if you'll give me some insight on that, it'd be great.
Well, I think your core values, establishing your own core values is very important. You need to know who you are. You need to have that compass,
right,
in order for you to move forward. To develop your character, and stick with that. And it's too easy, I think we've found in our business, to take shortcuts. But if you stay true to your core values, I think you can be successful, not taking those shortcuts and doing the right thing all the time.
Right, which is interesting. Carolyn, I wonder if you have any insight on establishing those core values, because you hear athletic directors say the words a lot. And I told Lynn, I've only heard one AD, and of course I haven't talked to everyone, talk about the method she used. And that was Jen Cohen, talked about how she established the core values of the department there at Washington. Do you have any insight on actually the method of establishing your own core values? And they're usually personal to each person, but when you talk about a department or an organization, it's got to be important.
I think core values are often confused. Organizational core values are really important. So if you're going to be in a leadership capacity working somewhere, you need to understand what that organization stands for and what their values are. That could be very different than your core values, but hopefully there's good synergy and connection. I think it is a personal reflection, and I think it is an intentional exercise when you decide on what your core values are, that you really stop to think and go through a process of asking hard questions. Because people speak a good game, but often don't really think about why they do what they do or why they decide that something's a core value. Right. It just sounds good.
Do their kind of work. So the introspection, internal questions, right? That's what Mark Jackson at Villanova, he always talks about that take the time to do the internal work to figure out who you are in terms of leader. What is your insight for us there, Sandy?
Yeah, Tai, I had a blessing of working for Gene Smith, who's now at Ohio State, but he was my AD at Arizona State. And he took his senior team through a consultant to help us determine our individual core values and then put together the core values of the organization. So it's a reflective process of going through and not just picking out words that feel right to you, but actually studying them, watching your life, how you practice it, etc. And it is an ongoing process. It's not something most people can just wake up and go, oh, boom, here's my 3 or 5 core values.
Exactly.
It's a process that takes, as Carolyn said, self-reflection and work to get to what are my core values and then how willing am I to stand up and live by them. In fact, Cary started a program at Nevada, Reno, a graduate certificate program in sports management, and I teach the sports leadership class. And through that class, we take the entire semester of starting to learn what are your values, what are the words that you're going to live by. We don't just say integrity, but you have to define how you're going to walk integrity every day. Your values are the center of who you are and how you're going to be in the world. And so I think you're dead on in really that being the absolute core and center of leadership.
Yeah, and I guess there are different methods in getting there, right?
You know, Tai, we work with a lot of organizations and institutions with strategic planning or identifying the department or the organization's core values and vision and mission statement. And it's interesting to me, I don't know what you guys feel about this, but oftentimes they've never gone through that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the staff members, even individuals who have been in the business for a long time. So we think it's very critical component of moving forward, you know, working your plan, determining where you're going, your vision as a department. So to Sandy and Carolyn's point, people just aren't familiar with identifying not only their own personal core values, but their organizational core values.
And I'd love to add one other point, if I might, Tai. It's one thing to put the words up on the wall, but that means nothing. It's all about action and how we are together, right? And it's about how you walk your talk. It's not about what you post up on the wall or, you know, put on your notebook or whatever it might be. But it's about the actions that determine what your values are, what your culture is, and that kind of thing. So,
which is important.
Yeah, it's super important. And the intentionality around what those words mean, because we can all ask each other, what does the word excellence mean? And we'll have different definitions of what that is. Be similar, but not the same. So it's really important to establish those words for which describe what you mean by your core values so that you have a pathway to live those.
Yeah, I think that's important. The Pictor Group started in 2014, right? Co-founder. You talk about values, right? When you created the organization, what were the values that led to you creating it? And then what is the purpose of the organization that probably came from some values you and the other co-founder came up with?
Well, we wanted to overachieve with our work. We wanted to do more. We wanted to give back to a profession that had been so good to us throughout the years. We did not establish core values in the beginning. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until about 2.5 years ago that this team, along with Diane Murphy, spent time to really develop our core values. I'll be honest with you, we just were off and running, working. And so we did take a step back a couple of years ago, practice what you preach, right? We've been working with organizations and institutions with their core values and their vision and mission, and we all kind of knew what we wanted to do and what they were. But we really didn't sit down and do an intentional plan, if you will, on those. And interestingly enough, not surprisingly enough, is we all kind of had the same core values, ideas and core values and a vision for the program. But we feel very fortunate to have had this type of experience professionally that now we've come together to help institutions and national organizations move forward with their organizations. I only wish that I had done this more with outside consultants because you need a third eye, if you will, an objective point of view, because you're so busy reacting that you really don't have a time to pause and think about some of the things you need to think about. You're just so busy. But what we're able to do is go in and work with these organizations and be that third eye, be that pause for them to help them move forward, make suggestions based on our experiences, which are also different.
Yeah.
So that's what I think makes us so unique.
And I would just add, and I'm surprised she didn't say this because she's so quick to say it, but the tagline for the Pictor Group is to rethink, refocus, recalibrate. And so we really want people to stop and think about what they're doing, then get their focus set, right? And then you recalibrate to go forward. Core values are a part of that, but rethink, refocus, recalibrate.
I'd love to add too, one of Cary's personal core values is fun. And so while we didn't articulate that as our core values, as our organization, as our leader, we have a blast.
We do.
And we get rehired by our clients probably like 95% of the time. And that is primarily because we over deliver. I mean, service is the key. We provide some expertise, obviously executive level expertise, and we have a good time.
Yeah.
Should be fun for them.
Right. And so anyway, it's a blast to be part of the Pictor Group.
It sounds like it is. What is the main, it sounds like you guys do a lot, right? Whether it be surveys, whether it be searches, whether it be establishing core values, strategic planning. What would you say in terms of the business, the main revenue line is for the Pictor Group? If you could share that, I guess.
Sure. We started doing program reviews actually at Sandy's institution, as she mentioned, and Drake. Program reviews with a financial eye, financial strategic planning that went along with it, because one of the original founders was in the financial area, real strong in that area. But as we've moved along, we've gone into strategic planning. We are now doing searches, not only for athletic directors, but for some secondary administrative or coaches. Executive coaching has come out of that, onboarding, a lot of special projects. Sandy and Carolyn are working on, they have worked on several projects with national organizations, the NCAA, Women's Basketball Coaches Association, the D3 commissioners, that are larger projects that really will affect the direction of those national organizations. So we've really grown as our clients have come to us with opportunities to assist them. And honestly, if we can't do it, we tell them, but we haven't said that yet.
Right. Nothing that you can't do yet.
We'll figure it out. No, right. But we, I think between the four of us and many of the specialists that we brought on board, we feel strong enough that we have that expertise and guidance that we can provide that service.
And when we don't, we go get it. I mean, that's what we've done. We're doing a significant project with USA Gymnastics, and we don't have a background in gymnastics. So we hired a specialist to come in and support us. We're doing we're in year 3 of a project that has to do with officiating. We didn't have the expertise. We went out and got somebody who was a national director of officiating in the NCAA, and she serves us in that capacity. So we're solution-based, and we can tailor to the needs of our clients. And if we don't have the expertise, we go get it. But we are quick to say, if we don't feel like we can fulfill their particular needs, we'll find somebody who can. We've got great competitors in the business that we certainly can call on when we can't fulfill something.
One other thing with this is we're not cookie cutters either. I mean, each client is unique, and we may have the same outline for a project on how we do it, but it's never the same. So we don't just go in and say, this is, fill in the blanks just here and there because we'll do the rest for you in a cookie cutter fashion. We don't do that. We work with the client to really personalize each of our opportunities with those clients.
Yeah, which is interesting. I wonder if you'll tell me, so the role of president, the role of vice president, like what are your specific responsibilities, Carolyn?
In terms of our roles within the organization?
Yeah, within the organization.
Well, they're the bosses. I'm the vice president, so I do what they tell me. But no, I think, it's a very collaborative approach. And I think, it's always, when we get a project, it's like, well, who's got the skill set to do this best? Who wants to do it, has a passion for it, but also who has the time to do it, because we've got to the point where we need to manage the workflow and or grow our team so that that we can make sure we service the client in the right way.
That's interesting. Do you guys individually have specialties where it's like when you were recruiting, you're like, you'd be great at this. So that thing that you do, I need you to do that here. Like, tell me about that. Like, do you see specialties that they may not know that they have, or did you hire them because of those specialties, or was it just because they had this experience of leadership and had done a great job in doing what they do?
These Carolyn and Sandy and Diane and all of our specialists have to have an untarnished reputation,
Yes,
first and
which is
foremost.
very important.
They have to be respected in our business, and they have to be people of great character, and they have to have fun.
Yeah, right.
But we've kind of fallen in that. I mean, the beauty of being a consultant is you don't have to do the things you didn't like to do before.
Right.
Okay. I mean, you just
That's
don't.
the best part.
That's hilarious.
Right. And so we'll get a job or we'll get an inquiry and we'll talk about it. We meet every week on the phone. As a matter of fact, typically we're meeting right around this time and we'll say, this is an institution that's come forward. Who'd like to do that? Carolyn and I do a lot of program reviews, and Sandy and Carolyn do a lot of national organizational work, as does Diane. And Diane and all of us, I shouldn't include me as much, do a lot of onboarding with new ADs or coaches, executive coaching for different positions. So we talk about it and make that decision. Typically, the person that brings the job forward is going to be that lead.
Okay.
And then we'll ask one of the, vice presidents, leadership team, or a specialist who is the right fit to do that. There's some things Sandy will say, do you want to do this? Or Carolyn, I don't want to do that. Ask somebody else.
But it is often a team effort. And I
Yeah.
think that's the beauty of it. I think women are great collaborators. So it's often a team effort. So we're not afraid to share the spotlight or also share the work. And so it's kind of fun to team up with somebody. Having been in a leadership role when you're the top dog and then it stops on your desk and the decision has to be yours, it's nice to go back to a situation where you can deal with peers
Right.
and respect each other's opinion and come to decisions together. Not that you didn't do that in your job normally, but I think it's just a little bit different approach.
And I think that's important because Sandy's been an athletics director. Carolyn's been a commissioner. I've been an athletic director. Diane's been athletic director. A lot of our specialists have been athletic directors and or other key roles,
Senior roles. Sure.
and we just seem to come together and work well together.
Yeah. You can see, when you're up that 50,000 feet, you can see where the road goes and where the road might have a block in it and be able to remove those roadblocks in terms of the systems, policies, and people of an organization. I do wonder about in the experience, 2014, so that makes you guys, 8 years old, I guess, as a company? And then, of course, the wealth of experience you guys had before. What has been the most challenging jobs that you guys have taken on as an organization? I mean, if you were to think about.
I don't know. Do anything come to
Everything's
mind?
easy? I mean,
No.
I would answer that in a more general way.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's really our challenge is to stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
We're here because we need to stay relevant and connected to the issues in higher education and college athletics. And so you can't lose touch with the environment. We may not be specifically on a campus working directly with the athletics team on a day-to-day basis, but I think you have to stay relevant and make sure you're reading D1 Ticker and listening to all these podcasts.
Yes.
And watching listening to your podcast.
Oh, really? Well, I appreciate that. I do appreciate
constant learning.
Thinking about the experiences that inform the values that inform the decisions that you guys have had at the various places that you've been, what were some of the challenges throughout your career that help inform some of the things you do now? If anybody wants to answer that based on things you've done in the past.
Yeah, one of the things I have a real passion for is coaches and helping them be successful. And with today's modern athlete and the way things have changed and the way COVID has changed, the way people engage and all of that, I don't think there's been a more difficult time for coaches and administrators to work together for success. And so I love studying coach education. How do we help coaches make sure the connections are there with their administration so that they're secure and healthy and all of those kinds of things. And I went down this path, forgetting your question. I'm going in my own direction.
This is typical with the three of us. We're like,
right.
where were
Cary
we going with that?
Cary will finish my...
Well, yeah, it was just basically in your experiences when you were on campus.
Yeah, so that's where I was going.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So that was always, as the athletic director, really finding tools for communicating with coaches in ways that they didn't look at me as the boss as a threat, but looked at me as the boss with in partnership with them, right? So have found a researcher who's done some great work on something called unconditional positive regard. Dr. Lauren McHenry, and she has these great set of tools that help a coach actually start to understand, how are my athletes interpreting what I'm coaching, right? Because the three of us could be out on the court together and have a really hard practice and walk off the court, and these two going, oh man, coach was really on us today and she's fired up and wants us to play hard on Saturday. And I walk off the court and I'm going, coach freaking hates me. And, why is she beating us up and all that kind of stuff, where we had the exact same experience, right? And it's how the athletes interpret the coach determines, whether they have success. And you have some misinterpretation, and now they're saying they're being abused, and now you have things you have to research, all these things. Anyway, long story is that was one of the things that I just wanted to really start to study, get my mind around. We're doing a lot of really neat work in coach education. We have some pilot work that we're doing in coach credentialing that will hopefully help coaches to and administrators work better together to make sure that everybody's on the same team to ensure that our athletes have a safe and healthy environment, that our coaches have what they need to be successful, and the administrators are successful in their work.
Which is excellent. What about from the commissioner's standpoint, in terms of you're bringing a bunch of people together for a common cause, but they all have their individual needs, wants, and resources, et cetera. Tell me how does that inform some of the work you do with the Pictor group?
I think the role of a conference and a conference commissioner is to really find points of agreement, collaboration, and affiliation. So why do you want to be a part of this conference? And therefore, what added value does it bring to your institution? I've been fortunate to work for both the Ivy League and the Patriot League, that really are conferences that have a firm sense of understanding who they are, right? And so the membership has a lot of strong connections with academic values, athletic competition, broad-based participation, and so forth. But it has to add value to the institution. And I think my job as a commissioner was always making sure that my membership felt like their affiliation with the Patriot League was adding value and providing competitive opportunity for their student athletes, but also exposure opportunities for their institution.
And so that experience is probably one of the secondary, right? You were the reason why she brought you on, but that experience is probably the secondary reason why she brought you on. Tell me how that informs what you do with the Pictor group. I mean, there's got to be
Well, I think because we work for clients. When you work in a conference office, you're working for institutions.
Oh, yeah, okay, I got it, yeah.
Presidents, athletics directors, senior women administrators, faculty rep, you're working for those people. And so you can never lose sight of that. And yet there's this fine balance. I always thought about leadership versus letting them make decisions. In other words, you bring them options, you bring them well-researched choices, information that will lead them to good decisions, right? I didn't have the authority to make the decision in most cases, at least on big issues. But ultimately, my job was to bring people together. And so working with the Pictor group, I think, is kind of understanding not only how we work together, but also how we add value to the client and listen and understand what they need, not what we need.
Is there a type of work that you get excited about?
Well, I'll be honest with you.
I need honesty.
I like it all right now.
Oh, do you really?
I do. I can't say that in the very beginning because we were getting started, and honestly, we would take anything we could to get us off the ground. But I mean, there's so many challenges facing this profession, and not only the institutions, but the organizations, that they need help. And especially when staffs are becoming a little bit more lean, but also going off of what Carolyn and Sandy both said, that connectivity as an athletics director to your coaches, athletic director to your staff, to your conference office,
Right.
to the NCAA, to your community is tough. But I don't dislike anything that I have been doing in this business.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
We don't,
We work
none
with
of us
great
like,
people.
we don't
Yeah.
like writing reports. Nobody's going to come out and say that.
Yeah.
You know, we don't
hilarious.
like doing that. It's part of it. But when you're working with the schools and the people, it really is fun because you can really talk freely about some things to try to find some solutions to help them better their organization, whatever that may be, whether it's national or institutional. So, you know, they may say, the one thing I don't like about this business is working with Cary.
Well,
they might
we only say
something
that
like
to
that.
each other.
That's hilarious.
Around. So Tai, I would say, I mean, I really love what we do. Some things are more engaging than others
Yeah.
just because of the dynamics with the people you're working with. But what I think is really helpful to us is how we tie it into the institutional mission. Notice most of the work we do for colleges and universities, many, many times we're hired by the president or by the vice president that oversees athletics.
Okay.
And they are interested in a broader perspective about athletics, how athletics really enhances the university.
Mhm.
The student athlete experience is critical, but they want to know how is athletics helping to drive our institutional mission. And so sometimes that's challenging because they may not understand the nuances of college athletics, but they're quick learners, they're smart people, and they care. So they've hired us because they care.
There's an aspect of that I've talked to a couple of people about, Lynn being one, is making sure that people understand that athletics is a part of the academic mission of a university.
Mhm.
And if it isn't,
Huge.
right, then we got a problem, right? But most of the times it is. But sometimes that's not verbalized by the people who are over academics or the people who are faculty or staff. You know, they may not understand that in terms. So emphasizing that based on what you said can be a challenge. I wonder how you do that. I was talking to an AD recently, talking about how bringing the people from the community who are not alum to games and they become donors to the athletics department, and from there they bring them to the president.
Mhm.
Now this person has become a donor to the greater campus.
Mhm.
And that's because they started at athletics. So not just the window to the university, the door to bring people
Yes.
into the university.
Yeah.
And so I wonder about that aspect in terms of what you said, and
It's very true.
how big is that struggle when you're on campus of making sure that the campus understands that athletics is a part of the academic mission.
Well, we believe firmly that when we do strategic planning in particular,
Mhm.
that the athletics plan needs to work tongue and groove with the
I
university's
agree.
plan.
Right.
In other words, and so we spend a good bit of time talking about what is the university's mission and vision? What are their core values? What are they trying to get done in the institutional plan? And then how does athletics complement that and make sure that it is adding value for the institution? But it also involves broad participation. So you want people outside of athletics, alumni, donors, people in the community that care about the institution to participate in that exercise as well. So people have buy-in. And then when you go forward with strategies to live out your plan, people feel like they've got some investment in that and are willing to support it.
All right, which is excellent. Cary, I'll ask you this question here before we wrap. Thinking about young professionals and the work you guys do on campuses or with organizations, where do young professionals fit in to some of the work that you guys are doing?
When you're doing strategic planning exercises or doing programmatic reviews, you have an opportunity to interview or meet with those individuals for a particular reason. And oftentimes, our experience is it also gives us a chance to mentor them,
Mhm.
to give them some advice about the business. And many of them will, follow up with you
Yeah.
because they want to learn. And again, it's all about connectivity and trying to get them with the right people to learn from, the people in the organization that can help them along the way, give them more opportunities. But I think, being a young person when I got in the business, and probably Carol and Sandy much, much later than
Much later.
later. But
Hilarious.
it's still having the courage to go to people within the department that have been there for a while and saying, I would like to do what you do, how do I get there?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that I need to do to get in that position? But also to understand you don't jump from the assistant ticket manager to the AD.
Yeah.
There's a process that's important. And, for us in this business, and we've been talking about this as of late, just as the NCAA, Sandy's connected to the Night Commission as a consultant right now. Carolyn's still very active. I try to be as active, but with all of the new changes that are projected changes that are coming about, particularly in Division I, this is a time where we can be of great help to try to transition into those areas as well. But bringing those young people along and giving those experiences as you make those transitions is very important for them.
I'd love to add to that, Tai.
Yes, please
and
do.
We have an intern that was with us for a year that continues to support us and is now a specialist consultant with us. We also, as mentioned earlier, Cary started a leadership and sports management certificate program as part of an executive MBA at Nevada Reno. That's really targeting how to help develop and grow significant high integrity leaders of tomorrow for not only college sports, but also professional sports and sports as a local entity. So anyway, it's super important to us. I looked up to Cary and Carolyn and Diane and others as I was coming up the ranks. Really looked up that high.
That is hilarious.
But truly, they led the way, and so we're trying to do the same. We consult with women leaders in college sports. We stay very active with them as well, so that we are with MOA, with other groups as well.
Yeah. I think that's excellent. This has been an excellent conversation. It could go on and on. I have a few more questions, but I think we probably should wrap it up. So I really appreciate you guys joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tai.
Thank you. Thanks for asking us.
Thank you. That was SThe Hatfield Clubb. She is the president of the Pictor Group. We also had Carolyn Schlie Femovich, vice president of the Pictor Group, and the co-founder and chief executive officer, Cary Groth. I really appreciate you guys joining us. Of course, I am Tai Brown with the One Question Leadership Podcast, and keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by SThe Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.